is just fantastic. Captain's Log, Subdates 220519.3. As this is going to be a lengthy detour, we've decided to run long-range scans on the Soapy Titans. If we're able to gather enough data, we might be able to silence and or control one or both of them. If we can control one, honestly, I'm gonna own this ocean. I'm just telling you now. Hello everyone, welcome to the exhibition of stupid people. Today we're going to start with 2 honourable mentions before we dive into 3 rather tasty subjects. The first honourable mention takes place in South Carolina, where officers from the Edgefield County Sheriff's Office arrived at a home in Trenton after they received reports of an unresponsive man in his yard. Officers found 60-year-old Joseph Anthony McKinnon dead in his yard. That's unfortunate. No F in the comments. The reason why is because when the police started to investigate his death and notify his next of kin, they then found the body of 65-year-old Patricia Ruth Dent in a freshly dug pit. Because Joseph Anthony McKinnon had killed her, had buried her in his yard only to suffer a cardiac arrest upon completion. That's number 1. Number 2 is the WWE. Yeah, I'm going to rail on them briefly. As everyone knows, Kofi Kingston is totally Jamaican and not born in Ghana. We know this is verifiable fact because if Vince McMahon orders you to carry out a character on and off screen, chances are you're totally legitness Jamaican. A more recent article, courtesy of Microsoft Start, yeah I know, of all places, alluded to the fact that it was actually Kofi's own mother that outed him for not being from the Caribbean. I want to play Vince McMahon is ever so slightly racist for 10 points. Anyone else want to try and counter it? So on to the first subject. We're going to go with British personality Ollie London, who has continued to defend transracialism in a documentary series called Would You Rather for Channel 4. Ollie London has undergone multiple surgeries to look like BTS member Jimin. More recently, has been identifying as a Korean woman using they-them pronouns, which makes this quite tricky, doesn't it now? On May the 2nd, when the episode of the Channel 4 series aired, Ollie London sat down with a lady, who was not named in the video, to discuss whether someone can identify as transracial. Now we've had this with Martina Big, we've had this with Rachel Dolezal, we've had this, I'm sure, continually to this day with Sean King, whose skin is as dark as light mode. During this documentary, Ollie London said, I identify as Korean. I used to live in Korea. I was living there for 1 year. I love the culture, the history, the people. I put myself through a lot of pain, a lot of surgical procedures to have more of a Korean aesthetic. I spent a lot of time learning the language, learning how to cook Korean food. Also adding that people really didn't get it. But Ollie is a little optimistic that over time, people will be more accepting of Ollie's status as transracial Korean non-binary woman. Clearly with Ollie London, something isn't quite right in Ollie London's head. Seriously, you cannot be transracial. You really can't. Saying you've lived in a country for 1 year does not give you some kind of work experience to say you're Korean. Saying you've had surgeries to look more Korean does not also make you Korean. You may love the place, you may love the aesthetic, you may love the people, but that does not make you Korean, Ollie. The woman who was opposite Ollie London actually said transracial does not exist, and I think it is very harmful to push the narrative that it is possible to switch races. I can't sit up here and suddenly say, oh, I'm a white woman, and if you as a white person says, oh, I can be black or I can be Korean, and I can't swap or benefit from the privilege that you benefit from, then it's clearly not an equal exchange. Because whiteness in this country has been set up that way. Do try not to roll your eyes at that. How I interact with the police, how I interact with the medical system can result in me passing away. The woman also continued by discussing cultural appropriation, and I'm sure many people can debate whether or not this is a form of cultural appropriation or not. I couldn't care less enough. I just want Ollie London to get the help that Ollie London needs. At a somewhat expedited rate, please. It would do the world a whole load of good. And Ollie London more notably. Oh, and because I'm a dick for a second, to the female who was opposite Ollie London to then turn it into something all about yourself from a very westernized perspective. Do try and keep up here. This is not about a white guy trying to be something in this country that is a minority. It is a white guy wanting to be a part of a majority in another country. That much is very well known when it comes to Ollie London. It is still not remotely acceptable. Next, I'd like to talk about Goop. Goop was started, founded, run by Gwyneth Paltrow as a form of luxurious brand. Many of you will have heard of the vagina-scented candle. Don't worry, it didn't actually smell like a vagina. They're known for their somewhat elitist standards, appealing mostly to those who have far too much money. A bit like Supreme, so basically any brand that Rice Gum would have thrown money at before Content Cop ruined his channel. More recently on their website, they, under the wellness banner, had this: the luxury diaper. Goop sold for $120. That's a lot of money, but don't worry, there's more to this than meets the eye. You may have seen, we launched a luxury diaper. They're lined with virgin alpaca wool, fastened with amber crystals and infused with the scent of jasmine and bergamot. And only one box of them exists, because they're not for sale. So there is a price tag, but it's not what you think. Now, I actually noticed it wasn't what it was from something else, the Instagram post from the Goop Insta page, where it says, if treating diapers like a luxury makes you mad, so should taxing them like a luxury. Despite the absolute necessity of diapers, in 33 states they aren't treated as an essential item. They are taxed as a luxury good. We priced our fictional diapers at $120 because that is what the diaper tax would cost families annually. The word fictional was the very first thing I saw, and it drew my attention because this has started a whole bunch of articles and videos, because there was a video on the Instagram page. The interesting thing really is, initially no one knew that that was what this was about. No one knew it was fictional at all. No one knew it was a fake. It wasn't until there was enough outrage over the very idea for a pack of 12, even though one existed, for $120, that you had actually put this out there as an idea. It does obviously shine a light on people being too dumb to realize that this might have been, let's say, for more attention. Akin to that of PETA latching onto Warhammer having animals in their model kits. Solely done for attention, try not to get too upset about it. Interestingly, this was localized to America, and that makes more sense because over here in the United Kingdom, nappies, disposable ones especially, are not taxed, and the government has, at time of recording, no plans to introduce a tax. Although don't be too surprised if they do in the near future, because they've got to do something to tackle the cost of living and, of course, the rising inflation of 9%. Well done, Boris, you've done a fantastic job. Now back to Gwyneth though. When she did a video responding to this and basically reiterated what I read from the Instagram post, she has indicated that the best way forward to deal with this is to join Goop, and then obviously Baby to Baby to help campaign against this. When it comes to ideas of taxing nappies, I'm not overly fond of the idea. I will concede it does get quite pricey for nappies if you have more than one child especially. Do I think the federal government or any state will change that? No, I don't think they will. And what's interesting here is you mentioned 33 states out of 50. So you're telling me some of those are Democrat? Don't suppose you could tell me what the split is, could you? Perhaps tell me what the 17 states that aren't are. I'm just intrigued. Do forgive me. Additionally, while claiming this is all about raising awareness about this luxury tax, you've also used it to promote your own product, which is where some might see this, I am one of those people, as a really shitty way of getting your point across. Is it effective? Not really. Most of the articles I've seen are in America, and it went under the radar because it was CNN, and that is well-known, established fake news. But I could be wrong. Now, I'm not going to deny the final subject I was torn on. It was either going to be Dave Chappelle and the person that attacked him on stage, or what we're going to discuss, Baked Alaska. Baked Alaska was an IRL streamer on YouTube, I think, was it YouTube or Twitch? Gained a lot of notoriety for being considered a right-wing internet personality, later then proven to be nothing more than an absolute beta cuck. That went on to make some rather interesting mischief, ultimately ending in them getting, I think, deplatformed. Yes, quite unfortunate. They had at one point been considered a reasonable voice that could have lent more credibility to arguments that Baked Alaska and many others were presenting. Unfortunately, Baked Alaska is an idiot, and I'll prove it. Recently, a judge awarded him a plea deal. All he had to do was plead guilty to a federal charge as part of a plea deal reached with the prosecutors. He decided Instead, because what had happened was, it was the, I'll call it what it was called, insurrection, and you call it whatever you want to call it. I don't actually care. The problem he has is, all of those that were found there have mostly been found guilty and sent to prison. He decided, rather than accept a plea deal, to instead go, YOLO swag fam, I'll accept the plea deal, but I'm not guilty, and the only reason I took it is because I know I won't get a fair trial. So the judge decided, fam, this is going to trial now. Congratulations. The trial date is set for March 2023, which means he has 10 months to get his affairs in order before he gets annihilated in a federal court, because that is what is more than likely going to happen. Judge Sullivan did say, if Baked Alaska wants to go to trial, he'll get a fair trial, like anyone and everyone else who has appeared before me, regardless of the charges. I'm not trying to trick you. Don't plead guilty to please me. Assistant US Attorney Elizabeth Ann Aloe has said that they will hold the plea deal open for 60 days. I sincerely hope that Baked Alaska either takes the deal or puts together something truly spectacular for his defense. Him live streaming in the building will not do him any favors. Whether you agree or not, it's more the argument of, he openly said the only reason he was going to take the plea deal was because he thought the district attorney would slap a felony charge on him if it went to trial. And the moment he said that, it then went to trial. And I find that quite fascinating.